The 168th edition of the Roy's Boys podcast starts right now.
Carolina basketball family is the strongest there's ever been. There ever will be.
Eight up freehand, King likes the ball. Pushes into Hubert Davis. 8 seconds. Davis trying to get free. Over to Fox. Fox, baseline. Up for the shot. Good. Off the glove. Oklahoma calls timeout. But the game is over. The game is over. Carolina has upset number 1 Oklahoma. Been ready on his second attempt. That one is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered Marvin. He scores. With 20 seconds left to play. Goes back to Michael Jordan. Jumper from out on the left. Good! 63, 62, 13, 12, 11. Georgetown with one timeout. Brent Brown looking. Throw away to Worthy. 35. The Tar Heels are going to win the national championship. Carolina with foul. He takes the timeout. Technical foul. Technical foul. Brown gets it into Williams. Here comes Williams front court. Williams on the drive. Gets it back out to head. Long outside shot. Short rebound. It's over. And how about the Tar Heels? They are the national champions. The Tar Heels are the national daggum champions.
And that's what it takes when you big time games. You got to compete. You do it with your brain, and you got to do it with your heart too. And that's pretty doggone good.
From QCBroadcasting.com, this is the Roy's Boys podcast with your host, Josh Marlowe. Everybody, welcome to another edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Josh and Anthony here with you back in person. We're going to look at Saturday's loss at Florida State. Jones Angell is going to stop by, and then we will look at the next matchup for Carolina, which is against Wake Forest. And we'll start with the loss to the Noles on Saturday. We both predicted the loss, so it sucks being right about predicting them to lose. But I think they did what we thought they were going to do. They went in there, they competed, they played about as well as I think they could have played in certain aspects. In certain aspects, they of course could have played much better. But on the road against a good ACC team, there was going to be some struggles. They had some. I was really surprised that they struggled with the size of Florida State as much as they did, but give the Noles some credit. But, you look, we're not here for moral losses, but you feel a lot more encouraged about this loss as opposed when you lost to State and Georgia Tech.
This is what really stinks about this team this year is that 3 of the 4 games that we feel like they've played their best basketball in, they've lost. It's just weird. It just shows you that they've played some veteran teams so far. I mean, Texas is a team that was a veteran team. Iowa's one of the more veteran teams in the entire country. And Florida State's a team that's, thrived over the last couple of years at being one of the more experienced teams when the rest of the country has been going to a younger trend. And, this felt like an opportunity for Carolina with Scotty Barnes missing the game. But I thought they played well. Yeah, I'm with you. I think you look at the overall performance, especially from the freshmen in this game, I think that was probably the most encouraging thing. Caleb Love, 11 points, 4-10 shooting, 3 of 6 from the outside. That was the real big thing for him. RJ Davis, also in this game, one of his best games of the season, actually led the team in scoring with 16, was efficient, 6 of 9 shooting, 2 of 3 from beyond the arc. So those guys had some really productive days. And then, of course, Kerwin Walton as well in there, still playing about as well as he could. This is a guy that wasn't expected to come in and make a major impact this year. But, yeah, I mean, there's some really good things to be encouraged about in this game. And I think the main thing that you should be encouraged about in this game is Anthony Harris returning to the lineup. Looked really, really good as well. Although, 5 points, he'll probably be a guy that once he sees more time, he'll score a little bit more than that. But extremely active on the defensive end and really just brought some life to this backcourt. It's a guy that, Eric Montross, I was listening to the game coming back after helping my sister move into her dorm in Chapel Hill on Saturday, and he put it best. This guy is he plays under control. He's a calming presence on the floor, but he knows how to score. Yep. He can play defensively. So I think that's a really big boost to this team, knowing that now you've got a guy that is somewhat experienced. We saw it even last year when he was a true freshman. He looks like an older, wiser type player. Even though he might be young, he still knows what he's got to do out there on the court. So those are the things to be encouraged about. But, yeah, I mean, this was still a Florida State team that was extremely aggressive, was able to get to the line a lot more than Carolina was. They were a team that was able to clean the glass a lot better than anybody else has done all season against Carolina. And they were able to affect Carolina down the stretch, something that we haven't seen a team be able to do since that Georgia Tech game. And that ultimately led to them winning this game. But it's still a game where you got to feel somewhat encouraged by the fact that this Carolina team just continues to fight. They had a chance to win this game and have shown, I think, over the last 2 weeks that they are at least going to factor in to the race in the ACC.
Yeah, I mean, R.J. Davis came off the bench, led you in scoring, 16 points, as you mentioned, 6 of 9 from the field. That's why those shots he made against Syracuse were just big for his confidence. Kerwin Walton gave you 14 points, 5 of 13 shooting, 4 of 10 from 3. And then Caleb Love may have had his best offensive game as a Tar Heel, giving you 11 points, only 4 or 10 from the field, but hit 3 of his 6 3-pointers. So, you got your 3 freshman guards played better. And a lot is because once Anthony Harris enters the game, he makes the game easier for those guys around him. That's going to be the biggest thing about him coming back, is that it's going to take the pressure off of Caleb Love, take the pressure off of R.J. Davis, and make the game a little bit easier for Kerwin Walton, who's, of course, adjusting pretty well to starting in the ACC this season. But as I mentioned, I think the thing that really hindered Carolina in this game was they got out rebounded for just the second time this year, 30-29, and the size of Florida State just affected Carolina more than any other team size has all year. I mean, Garrison Brooks only had 1 rebound. Armando Bacot only had 5 rebounds. Day'Ron Sharp only had 6 rebounds. Like, those are just
in double digits. Yeah, really even close to double digits.
That's just well below their averages and what they're used to doing. Mm-hmm. So you give a lot of credit to Koprovisa, who had a monster game. Eric Montross mentioned on the broadcast, he's the best skilled big man they've had there in some time. And I think Carolina's defense, it wasn't bad. It was just, you could tell they were playing against a veteran team that knows what they're doing, because Florida State took really quality shots. That's why they shot 48% from the field, 50% from 3. And another thing that really killed Carolina, you put Florida State on the foul line 27 times. They made 26 of them.
When did they miss the one? I don't remember that.
It must have been late.
It must have been really late.
And then you only got to the foul line 14 times. Now, granted, you converted 11 to 14, but the 13 free throws and the disparity right there is a big reason why you got beat. You took care of the ball pretty well. You turned the 14 turnovers, but they converted into 22 points for Florida State. So it's hard to win on the road when you don't get to the foul line like you need to and you turn the ball over. But
well, that was the reason they lost the game. Look at this. Carolina made 27 of their 62 shots from the field. Florida State made 24 of 50. So Carolina has the advantage in 2-pointers made. 3-pointers made, Carolina made 10 of their 24. Florida State made 8 of their 16. Florida State literally won this game from the foul line. The stats are there to prove it. Which part of it I get. You can't be overly mad at Carolina. There's nothing you can do when they get to the free throw line. You can't defend them. It just is what it is. They made their shots. And I mean, look, you can say whatever you want about the officiating. There's always those people that are going to want to say, that the ACC officiating was bad, whatever. You know what? Look, don't put yourself in that situation. That's the only thing that you can really say about it. And, I think there's still, this team, they knew coming in that this was going to be a tough task. You pretty much had to play a perfect game. They did a lot right, but there were a couple things late in the game. Day'Ron Sharp had an opportunity to finish inside and couldn't. Those are the types of things that are going to be the difference in games like this against Florida State. And it's going to be a similar type matchup when you face Virginia later in the year. Teams that that are veteran teams and that look the part of teams that could make runs in March. You have to play a perfect game with them. We'll see if Carolina's maybe a little more prepared later in the year when they have to take on the Cavaliers.
Yeah, and another thing, Carolina, they really finished well in the 3-game winning streak. This game, they finished 1 of 7, 0 for their last 5. So as they were battling, the thing was, like, they got down by 10, they came back, they took the lead. They got down by 10, came back, cut it to 1 or 2. Like, they competed really hard, which hasn't been a problem for this team, but you realize that you can't do that game in, game out, and expect to win, especially when you're this young, especially on the road, especially against veteran teams. So that's going to be the thing moving forward is when they play another veteran squad, like when they play NC State for a week from now. That's a team that they beat you a lot because they're more experienced than you, and that showed in the final minutes in that game in Raleigh back in December. So how do you handle this the next time you get a chance to try to close the game out? But overall, I mean, look, you're 8-5. You're still feeling this team is trending in the right direction, trying to stay. This isn't like when we were coming off losses to State and Georgia Tech where you felt defeated. I don't feel defeated after this loss. I thought Carolina competed. I mean, they had scoring droughts again. They still scored 75 points. So the offense is really starting to come together. You can see where they're starting to progress and look more like a Carolina offense that you're used to seeing. Mm-hmm. The tempo is a little bit better. They're starting to shoot the ball better. They're starting to get better ball movement, which gives them better spacing. And when they get all that, they've got guys on the court that can make shots, and you're starting to see that. It's starting to slowly come together, and I think that's the thing we got to keep in mind is that it's coming together, and it's just not as fast as we want it to go to, as fast as we want it to, and that's just us being impatient as Tar Heel fans and really just how much pressure is around the program to produce, especially after last year's 14-19 season for Florida State. Gray, big game, 19 points on 6 of 10 shooting. Evans, 10 points, 3 of 9 shooting. MJ Walker was a monster, 21 points on 6 of 11 shooting. That's a big reason why they're going to be a team that's going to factor to win in the ACC. And with the NCAA tournament, especially being in one central location where it's going to be a bubble-type setting, if this team makes a run in March, no one's going to be surprised. Lauren Hamilton's a veteran coach. He's got a veteran squad that's going to make some noise as the season moves along. So any other touches or anything else from the loss to the Noles?
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, again, you mentioned the turnovers, 14 in the game. Didn't hurt Carolina probably as much as it has in the past because Florida State turned it over 17 times themselves. But I think where it was really big, you look, second half, 8 turnovers as opposed to just 6 in the first half. I think that's probably the area that it hurt. But, yeah, I mean, I don't feel like there's any long-term ill effects from this. I think in this game, you honestly feel pretty confident about what you saw from these guys. With the return of Anthony Harris, you got to see what he brings to the table. Now you can sort of take a little bit of time to figure out just what type of role you're looking at for him going forward. Definitely one that hurts. It's a game you wanted to win, but it's one that you come up short in, and you're not walking away feeling like this is a terrible loss.
Right.
So.
With that, we'll move on. Last week I had the chance to talk to Jones Angell, the voice of the Tar Heels. In case you guys missed that episode of the podcast, I'm going to play that interview right now. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Today I am joined by the voice of the Tar Heels, Jones Angell. Jones, how's it going today, man?
Oh, Joshua, doing great. Appreciate you having me on. And, man, just a busy time, of course, with Carolina basketball really all the way in here to conference play, trying to continue to improve, and some big games on the near horizon. So looking forward to seeing Carolina, and hopefully this team can keep getting better, which I think it has done here over the last few weeks.
Yeah, you mentioned they got some big games on the horizon. They'll have one tomorrow at Florida State. We'll get to that in just a little bit, but let's talk about the team's progression before we preview tomorrow's game with Florida State. And Carolina, I think they started the season off pretty well. You looked at what they did in Maui, where they went 2-1, and you could really respect what they did there. And then from there, they kind of hit a lull, where they went to Iowa and got beat. Then they beat Kentucky, where they didn't play great. And I thought that Kentucky win was really going to jumpstart the season. That didn't happen. Started 0-2 in the ACC with losses at NC State and losses at Georgia Tech. But they've strung together 3 straight wins, albeit not pretty. But I've stressed on my podcast all year long that for this team, it's not about how you win as long as you do win. So what has stood out to you in the 3-game winning streak for the Tar Heels?
Well, number one, I think it's important to realize that a lot of teams are going to go to Iowa and lose, especially if they hit 17 3-pointers or whatever it was that they made that day. I don't think Carolina felt like it played well in Raleigh against NC State, and I don't feel like Carolina felt like it closed well against Georgia Tech. But I think what's important to remember is that this is such a unique season, and that Carolina is playing with such a young team. And I do think it's never easy to play with a bunch of freshmen. And as we know, Carolina, 6 of their 10 rotational guys are freshmen. It's never easy to play with that many freshmen, but I think it's even harder this year because you did not have a regular preseason. You did not have, exhibition games and the closed scrimmages. You did not have a schedule that in November and December would have not only had those games in Maui or the game against Iowa or the game against Kentucky, but they would have also had some games against some teams that Carolina had a high likelihood of defeating. And there was one or two of those for the Tar Heels this year, but traditionally you play more than that. And so I think when you add all of those things together, it's been a difficult